Hey, good afternoon. This is Lyman Woodfin, Superintendent, Talk County Schools. We're going to give everybody just a few seconds to log in, but we appreciate you guys tuning in today for our State of the Schools address. Again, I'm going to give everybody about a minute or so to log in, and then we're going to roll right into the presentation. Thank you for logging in today. Ready to go? All right. Well, again, thank you guys for logging in today. I really look forward to this. I know this is the second time we've done it. I think it shows you guys that we're always going to be try to be honest and transparent. And we're going to run through some things that we've talked about the last 18, 19 months. And at the very end of the presentation, I'm going to answer as many questions as I possibly can. I don't know the questions. Ms. Thomas is behind the screen helping me out. So as we're going through the presentation, if you're logged in and you want to fire away some questions, do so. And like I said, I'll do my very best to answer them. Some of them I may not know the answer to. If I don't, Ms. Thomas will get your name and I will circle back up with you after the presentation. But I really enjoy that format. I think it shows a level of transparency that we will always try to do it in the Talk County Schools. So before we get started, we got a lot of field days going on. We got graduation starting tomorrow. Guys, it's been a really, really great year. I feel like we've made a lot of progress. I like where we're headed. A lot of our staff feedback, we all feel like we're moving in the right direction. That's a big testament of what you guys give us as well. You support us. And it's the support that you give us, our students, our communities. We can't do it without you. So again, I appreciate you logging in, appreciate you watching, and fire away with the questions. All right, so a couple of these first slides will be some of the same slides we used last year. When I came in, we really tried to hit the ground running on, hey, what are some concerns that are out there? So I thought what I would do is take some of the questions and concerns that parents have asked and go, okay, how have we started trying to address some of these? Our first job is always to keep students safe. It's not lip service, that's the truth. We try to do everything we possibly can. So prioritizing student safety is always going to be the first job for me, for the Board of Education, for all of our teachers. That's in our staff members. That is the job, and we take a lot of pride in that. Last year, in order to try to help student safety, we did purchase some weapons units and or metal detectors. We tried running them, and we still use them a lot. And right now, we randomly pull students out. We'll run the kids through it. But once we started running them, they're so sensitive. It was very hard to run a day-to-day check-in with metal detectors. So we researched other districts, some units that they're using. A few board meetings ago, I purchased some other weapons units that are more designed to pick up weapons. And we've been testing those at all of our secondary schools. They're currently used at Prattville High School. They're used at the Career Tech Center. I think they're actually at Marbury High School today. What we're trying to do is, number one, those units cost a lot of money. They're about $20,000 per unit. I'm trying to test them at each school to see, number one, can we use those units daily? Number two, can we use those units with the personnel that we have? And then number three, how many would we need to get? We've ran them at a lot of schools. Like I said, we're working through a circuit on that. The feedback has been really, really good from our principals and our security staff. So I feel like we're going to be able to make another purchase with several of those units. And again, these are more designed to be able to use daily. They just don't pick up on like 3-ring binders, and that was the dilemma with the other ones. We're still going to use our other metal detectors. You know, they're very good. They pick up the least amount of metal. But you use Prattville High School, for example, when you're trying to run 1,800 kids through, they cause problems. You know, when I did that last year, I'm sure you all remember, I did a call out and said, hey, that's on me because we had some issues on getting kids in. But again, these new weapons units, they're much more conducive to what we need to do. They're still sensitive. They do pick up on weapons. You know, so that's my goal there. We've added several security guards, and we're going to continue to add them as much as we possibly can with funds. I'm a firm believer that if you want to keep kids safe, you want to keep behavior in check, you need boots on the ground. You need boots on the ground in the hallways, in the classrooms. So we've added several security guards. We will continue to do so. And that combination, I feel like it probably gets us as safe as we possibly can be. While I'm here, I do need to give a shout out to Prattville Police Department and our Talbot County Sheriff's Office, Chief Thompson, Sheriff Harrell. I mean, they're great to work with. They're there at a drop of a hat, and we appreciate the partnership we enjoy with those entities. The next concern that came up quite a bit was student behavior. You know, last year when I came in, code of conduct was kind of set. We made a point that we were going to overhaul elementary education, the discipline side of it. It is more stringent. There's no two ways around that, but I'll tell you what we've seen is students know that certain behaviors are not going to be allowed, and our schools are being much more consistent on how we handle all that. We put some things in internal to make sure that our schools are treating offenses the same way. And again, I think it's went very well. Now, I'm not going to apologize for expecting our students to do right, but I think a lot of it is being consistent on our part, and I feel like we're getting there. We did make some changes to second chance last year. We will make some more next year. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Well, I'm going to get into it now. Second chance is a great facility. It's a great idea, but it's so small, it really throws off what we've been trying to do with our discipline model. So next year, second chance will move to the old kindergarten. It'll be one hallway of the old kindergarten, and we're also moving our virtual school to the old kindergarten. But what that's going to allow us to do is, obviously, we can expand it as needed. We're also going to make some changes with how we're doing instruction at second chance. What you will see next year with second chance is, instead of it being a short-term, long-term model, it will be a short-term type model. Students will be in cubicles. It's not going to be pleasurable, but we are going to change how we do our instruction. Teachers will do small group instruction and pull students out. So if I'm a student at second chance, and let's say from 8 to 9 o'clock I'm working on a math assignment, they're working on it. 9 o'clock, the teacher is going to come in. Hey, I need you four to come with me. They're going to do small group instruction. Hey, what are you working on? Let's help you out. We're going to make sure that we're doing a better job on that side to make sure students, if they make a bad choice, that does not define them, but we got to make sure that the instruction is continuing so that when they come back to their base school, they're ready to go. We're also going to make some changes with how we assign work at second chance. We're looking at using Edgenuity to make things more consistent. That teacher with Edgenuity can tailor the module to make sure it's right. And so again, I feel very good at where we're headed with that. Now, you're not going to see, if I hope your child does not, I hope all of our children do not, but you know, you're not going to see a long-term mentality next year. You're going to see, if you're at second chance, whether it's 3 days, 5 days, or longer than that, you're going to see a much more confined space, and you're going to see much more individualized instruction. So hopefully the confined space and limiting what students can do changes behavior, but we don't lose the instruction component, so that when that mistake is made, we take care of it, we get them back to class, and there's not a learning gap. So we're working on that. The outdated and aging facilities, again, this is last year's stuff. It's still an issue. But you know, I gotta say, we have done a really good job, in my opinion, of taking any available funds that are left over from state or bonds or federal dollars, and we're making a conscious effort to improve our facilities. We don't have enough available revenue, and I'll get to this later, to do a massive new high school or a new junior high, or we don't have the capability, and again, I'll explain that in a minute. But we do have the capability of taking better care of what we have. And just a few things off the top of my head. You've probably seen some gym renovation work. I know we have redone all the floors. Why did we do that? For your floors to last a long time, you got to take them down to the original wood about every 10 years. And there were some of our floors nobody really knew when it occurred. So we're getting everything on a regular schedule. We've redone, or excuse me, we redid the graphics on a lot of the floors. At Marbury Middle, at Prattville Junior High, we changed out the bleachers. If you've been in there, you know the old wooden ones were problematic. We're about to be fixing the ceilings at Prattville Elementary, Prattville Intermediate, Marbury Middle. That's scheduled to start March 2nd. We're about to start a livestock lab in Billingsley. There's so many things that we're doing. They're smaller projects, but I hope you see some of the changes. We've replaced a lot of flooring. We're almost finished with replacing all the roofs in the district. We're doing a lot, and I hope you see that. Now, stay tuned. There's going to be some other things that come down in the next few weeks, and I don't want anybody to misunderstand. What we're doing, again, is any available dollars that we have, whether it's state, whether it's money from bonds, whatever that money is, we are trying to solve as many facility issues as possible. So you're going to see some construction on a smaller scale at several of our schools. You're going to see. I'm very concerned with Daniel Pratt on the backside. I don't like how some of the traffic comes through. With the new kindergarten, that's kind of changed how people are using that parking lot. You're going to see some fencing there. You're probably going to see some fencing projects at some of our elementary schools to just, when kids are out on the playground, let's make sure it goes back to that first thing. Let's make sure they're safe. And you're going to see a lot of projects like that again, we're trying to solve things that have been problems for a long time. This next bullet, lack of access to academic, athletic, extracurricular opportunities. Guys, we've really expanded supplements, not only just athletic and fine art. We've also added some supplements for our media specialists. We've looked at what we're trying to do, and as far as if a teacher's got or a teacher has multiple things that they're doing, we've tried to really start targeting how do we take care of our people to expand that. We did add more fine art supplements. Some of the supplements have never existed before. I'm thinking of theater, debate. There's a lot of things that we've put in place that have not been there before, and they're in there now. And again, that's to give our students more opportunity after school. I'm a firm believer, especially in the secondary side. You keep families when kids have something to do after school. You have to keep them in school, and they have to do something after school that wants them to basically want to keep coming back. So we've expanded that. We've expanded a lot of the coaching supplements. We've raised the bar on what we expect there, and that is designed again to give students more opportunities. Really excited. We're trying to start a band at Billingsley. Again, we've expanded our band supplements. There's a lot of things we've done to try to address this about the extracurricular opportunities. Look, this is always going to be a major concern, losing quality faculty and staff members. Our teacher retention rate, that's something we look at yearly, it increased. We were able to hold on to more of our people this year than what we did last year. Now, part of this issue is, and I'll get to it in a minute on units, but sometimes unit decisions play into why a principal lets people go. The way I handle that, I do not tell principals who to hire and fire. Being a former principal in the district, I didn't want central office telling me who to hire and fire. I'm here to hold my principals accountable and our schools accountable. But if I'm going to hold a principal accountable, that person has to be able to make those decisions on their campus. So the way it works, we give principals, hey, here's 60 units. Use them how you see fit to best hit your needs on your campus. Now, when enrollment is declining, I cannot give them as many units as what I would like to, because we are funded based on how many students we have. But I'll get to some of that in a minute as a positive. Well, here you go, we'll roll right into it. Lack of adequate teaching units is still a concern. However, this past year, it was a few weeks ago, when we did budget meetings with our principal, because We have moved things around internally because we've gained more efficiency with how we're operating, because we freed up some money. For the first time, I've been in this district 20 years, and I've been in those unit meetings. Hey, your enrollment's gonna be 500, but you're only gaining enough units for the 480 that you had this past year. That is not how we did it this year. For the first time ever, we were able to project out what the enrollment was gonna be next year, and we staffed our schools accordingly. Now again, my belief is, I'm gonna give you these units, but I've gotta let my principals decide where they see the best need. If I'm a secondary principal, I'm looking at course requests. What do my kids want? That goes into what I'm gonna offer on my campus if I have a lot of kids that are wanting to take a particular class. So again, of all the things, and you've heard, last year you heard me, I said, hey, we got two major staffing problems. One's special education, and one of them is our local units. We didn't necessarily stumble on money, we just got much more efficient with how we're doing it. A huge shout out goes to our CSFO, Ms. Wallace. She's really done a real good job of trying to maneuver things around. So I really feel like we're making a lot of progress there. Are we where we need to be? The answer is no. You know, would it still change things if we had an additional 5 to 10 local units? Well, of course, that's always going to change the game a little bit, but I am very proud to tell you, again, this is the first year that I've been in this district that I'm aware of that we've been able to staff our schools, not where we are right now, but what we project them to be next year. Debt's always a concern. You know, this was one thing that popped up quite a bit last year in the community meetings. The district continues to pay debt as quickly as possible. Again, we've eliminated a few bonds. This will be a slide I'll get to in a minute. But I got to give our local delegation another shout out. That's Senator Chambliss and Representative Starnes and Representative Smith, Representative Lawrence. They were able to get us grants that we were able to pay off a lot of our debt or a lot of our bonds before. So again, we're going to keep chipping away at debt, and I'll show you that slide in just a second. All right, so there's still, these were bullets last year, and this is where I'm having to camp out a little bit, because I got to explain why these two issues are critical for our district. The first one in Prattville, there's some declining enrollment in our schools. When enrollment declines, we don't earn as many teacher units as what we did the year before. So that's what plays into having to lay off teachers. I've got to solve why our families are leaving. And I'll get to this in a second, in district transfers. But part of what our families are telling me, and again, y'all see me, I'm in the communities. Hey, our facilities in Prattville just aren't great. I hear the concern. We're trying to fix as much as we possibly can. We have a lot of families that have taken advantage of the in-district transfer. They're transferring from our central zone schools and they're going to Daniel Pratt. The feedback they tell us is, look, it just makes more sense for my family because I work in Montgomery and I've got 3 kids. I can drop them off at one school as opposed to 4. I get it. Y'all know I have 5 kids. They're all in the district. I understand that rationale. Now, we've had to pretty much stop the transfers to Daniel Pratt because my problem I had is Daniel Pratt is pretty much full and we're losing enrollment in our other schools. So, you know, I'm constantly looking at why are families choosing to do different, go to different schools. I know curriculum pops up quite a bit. Guys, we have to do what the state says. Now, I think we've done a better job this year than we did last year about making our teachers understand, look, we have guides, but there's a big difference between what's required and what's recommended. I want our teachers to know I'm not going to be in your classroom telling you how to teach, what to teach. We have a guide, we have to put that stuff out there. There's certain things we have to do, but they're the professionals, and I think this year was much smoother than last year in terms of our teachers being having the power to do what they need to do. So there's only so much we can do with what we have to do with the state guidelines. I assure you, if you read the news, you've seen Mr. Dennis and I, we're trying to pursue everything we possibly can to give our teachers the freedom that they, quite frankly, rightly deserve. The Marbury Pine level, again, this is last year's concerns, it's this year's concerns. These 2 concerns are probably going to be up there until something changes, but the rapidly increasing population in Marbury Pine level, guys, that continues. You know, I get asked a lot because being the former principal up there, and I live in that community, and I get asked a lot, what are we going to do if 3, 4 houses come in, and right now I don't even have an answer I can give you because, well, I'll get to that in a minute as far as funding. Those two issues are major issues. The facilities in Prattville and the facilities in the Pine Level exit area. That's two major issues that, whether we like it or not, are coming at us quicker than we could ever see coming. The last major concern that I hear a lot about is, hey, supporting our schools for as far as personnel. Again, it's still a need. We're continuing to add positions as possible. Again, a lot of that boils down to how much money we have left, because obviously any position that's not funded by the state has to come out of local dollars, and we've done a better job of that. We're continually adding staff as much as possible in our schools. All right, so I will briefly hit on the report card. As you know, we're coming to the end of another great year. We're getting some preliminary data back. I feel pretty good about where we're at. But this is last year's stuff. Long story short, from 22, 23 to 23, 24, our overall report card did increase to 84. The main thing here, our chronic absenteeism was at 14%. Right now, it's about 9 district-wide. So I appreciate you parents, helping us get your kids to school. What you're going to see is if kids are in school, their academic achievement is going to increase. So I feel very good at where we're at next year. This next slide just kind of shows where we're at. We just pulled a couple of random schools. What you're going to see as far as the county system, we're right there. We're right there at the top. In terms of all the county systems around here, Elmore County and Autauga County tied with an 84. Anybody else in the river region, they're not at an 84. I don't mean that's just where the rankings came out. Get a lot of questions asked about, why do city systems score higher? Well, a lot of times that's just the number of people there. You can argue resources to a certain degree, but again, a lot of it is the number of kids that you're testing. So I feel very good with where we are in terms of our report card. We always want to keep pushing to move forward. On our report card, I will hit a couple of highlights. In the city of Prattville, every elementary school except for Prattville Intermediate scored an A. Prattville Intermediate had the most growth of anybody. They went, I think, from 83 to 88. So really good there. Pine Level knocked it out of the park, 92. Billingsley did well. Our biggest issue right now with our report card, our secondary schools, we got to get a little higher scores out of our secondary schools. Part of that is our CCR rate, our grad rate, and our growth needs to improve. A lot of it too, though, I'll be honest with you, if you look at report cards across the state, especially in the county models, you're going to see your secondary schools score a little lower. Some of it's how the report cards factored as well. But look, we're not happy with our secondary schools mainly being in the C category. We got to get that up. Our principals know that. But again, preliminary data coming in, I feel really good. Stay tuned there. But again, I feel good where we are. Excuse me. All right, so real quick, a couple of code of conduct revisions. We approved this, I think, at the last board meeting. There will be some more changes to it. It's not finalized, but we try to get on this as quickly as possible. The first thing here, dress code modifications. Families, we've heard you. We know that we needed to make some adjustments. I will point out a few things that have been changed on this year's dress code. I do not see these changing. In other words, I don't see them changing back to what it was. I've got 4 daughters. I understand the challenge sometimes of buying clothing. I know leggings are very popular. What we've done with our language on leggings, they'll be allowed as long as the top covers anywhere where undergarments are. Again, we're trying to find a happy middle ground there. We want our students in school. We don't want to send students home because of what they wear to school. But parents, with that adjustment, I'm really going to need you to help me out there because that is a major change with our district. We're trying to hold the integrity of what it should look like or what we should look like dressing to go to school, but also understand, hey, we want our kids here, we want them comfortable, we want you to be able to buy the clothing that you need for your children. we adjusted skirt length from 2 to 3 inches. Shorts are still mid-thigh. And we just changed some of the language to make sure that what we are expecting is being clear. I hope next year you will see much more consistency, but I will say any issues with dress code this past year, every one of them that came across my desk, the school was maintaining what that policy was. It was just a difficult situation for trying to get the policy to mirror the goal of what we had of getting our kids to school, but also something more in the middle that families and school leaders could work together to meet. So that, I feel good about that. Again, we're trying to meet in the middle and move forward there. Student discipline, again, I told you we revised our elementary discipline. You probably won't see a lot of changes there. Feel very good about how that played out. Feel very good about the changes we made on bus discipline. Last year, we had some problems there. This year has been, knock on wood, much smoother. So we'll probably maintain that. But as far as some of the things we're looking at, this past year there was a law passed called the Student Due Process Law. What it says is any placement longer than 15 days, basically you have to have a hearing. Well, in Ottawa County, we've always done 10 pending. I did not change that last year because I wasn't really sure how this new law was going to kick in. So what I'm looking at in some instances with some of the infractions that have typically led to a 10 pending placement, which quite frankly usually leads to or can lead to a 45-day placement. We're looking at shifting that a little, maybe to 15-day. Now I'm going to be very clear. I'm not saying every infraction is going to be that. There's certain things we cannot have happen on our campuses. I'm not really ready to say one way or the other what some of those infractions are. I have another principal meeting coming up. There's certain things we're not going to tolerate anytime. Alcohol, drugs, vapes. There's just things we're not going to put up with. But what we're looking at is some of the possibly maybe fights is on the table. Is possibly, especially if we revamp what we're doing at Second Chance, we may move some of that to a 15-day placement. Again, I'm not ready to say 100% sure. We're working through that. I should know more about June when we get our legislative update. But again, we're trying to find a happy middle ground, but I'm not going to waver on what we're asking kids to do and what we're expecting. We have to have an orderly environment for our kids to learn in, and we're not going to back away from that. But we also understand sometimes there were some things there that, it was tough. So we hear you. We're trying to find that happy middle ground. We did make an attendance policy update. It just clarifies what actually is an absence, what's not an absence in terms of the percentage of the day. All right, so a lot of you are probably logged in wanting to know, what are we going to do with cell phones next year? The answer right now is I'm not really sure. The way this works, this is called the Focus Act. This is something Governor Ivey signed, I think, a day or 2 days ago. The way it works for us, okay, once the legislature passes a law, our attorneys have to go through it. SSA, that's the School Superintendents Association, and the AASB, that's the Alabama Association of School Boards. They then take the legislation, they allow their lawyers to look at it, and then they give us policy recommendations to meet the needs of the law. I will not get that information until about mid-June. So that's something that we will look at. I get both sides of the Focus Act. I understand it completely. Again, I got 5 kids in the district. They all do something after school. I get it completely about parents saying, hey, my kid needs a phone in case I can't pick them up after practice. I'm not really sure of the wording of the law yet to be able to say one way or the other. But I will say this. I mean, if it's the law is the law. I can't decide not to follow the law. If there's a happy middle ground, I will tell you my personal opinion. When I was a principal, I didn't really mind if my kids were on the phones in the lunchroom or in the hallway. And honestly, that's how a lot of our high schools function now. It's a principal's decision. I kind of let that go. But if it's the law that says, hey, that phone cannot be out at any point in the day, well, guys, that's what we're going to have to do because I have to follow the law. So I'm waiting on guidance from AASB and SSA. And again, We expect that about mid-June. That's when we have to do our conference, and they give us all the legislative updates. So I'll update you guys more on that as we move forward. But I just want you to know, I understand both sides of it. I'm very blessed to be able to call many of you watching friends. Like, we talk about this stuff when I'm at the ball field. I get it. I hear you loud and clear. I just ask that you understand too, that if it's a law and we are bound by law, then that's what we have to do. So we're going to find out on that. We'll keep you updated on that. Alabama Public Education Paid Parental Leave Act. Guys, that's a big deal for our employees. I'm so happy that happened, that passed. Basically, it gives our expectant mothers and fathers some leave time. It's pretty standard in most businesses, so I commend the legislature for pushing that through. The RAISE Act, it was an attempt to change how public schools are funded. I'll be the first to admit that needs to occur. We're not really sure how this really impacts us yet. On paper, we should get about, I want to say it's about $1 million extra. Most of that's in special education and other formulas. I'm a little concerned. I haven't seen everything yet, but looking at it preliminary, it looks like maybe some things that we were able to get before have now been moved to there. So I don't really know how much extra money there is. But I do commend the legislature for even trying to tackle this, because that's a big deal. Like a lot of pieces of legislation, we'll know the true result of that once we go through a year of the process and see what costs there are, what expectations, and then how do we actually access that money. So we'll see. But again, I commend them for trying. All right. Financially, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I know last year we talked a lot about this, but I think it's important to kind of explain how we're funded. Our budget is about $109 million. Guys, that is a lot of money. I'll be the first to admit it. But I need y'all to think of it like this. 77% of that is earmarked, which means it's required to be spent as directed. So, if I get a $100 paycheck, 80 of it's already spent, and there's not really a whole lot left I can do. Just real quick, the pie chart shows this a little better. I'm going to show it like this. Our state funds make up about 63%. Our federal is about 10%. Our local funds is about 23%. Other is 4%. That's your school accounts and some other things. So as far as revenue, you can see that a vast majority is federal and state dollars. Local dollars is where you make improvements. Local dollars is where you have to pay for bonds. Local dollars is where you pay for local teacher units. In terms of that, we get about $25 million in local dollars. Okay, of the $25 million, $10 million is from property tax. About $10 million is sales tax. Right off the top, about $10 million of it goes back to the state. So now you're down to 15. Of that, I've got some things listed here. These are things that we have to pay for out of local dollars. State foundation match, state capital fund match, CNP salaries, benefits, SPED cost, career tech cost, pre-K cost, Alabama Reading Initiative, utilities, debt, athletic, fine art, other supplements, maintenance of buildings, supplies. So when you get to the end of all that, y'all saw that presentation last year. I'm not going to bore you with it, but again, we get down to about $2 to $3 million left once we do all that. So I get asked a lot, and I'll just say this specifically. Hey, why haven't you built a new Prattville High School? Okay, well, a new Prattville High School is going to run you about $150 million. That bond is going to be about $9.4 million. So I just explained we have $2 to $3 million at the end. That's why we're trying to pay off our debt to free up our borrowing capacity. But that's the if and ands. That's the if, ands, and buts about our local dollars. Now, there are some state funds. That's how we're doing some of this stuff that you're about to see. Very, very thankful that the state has been sending us some money to put into facilities. That's been a game changer. I will defend previous boards and previous superintendents. If I didn't have those funds coming in, I don't really know what we would do. So that's why, again, I know the blowback that's coming is going to be, well, y'all are doing a lot of things that you said you had to have the property tax increase to do. Well, we're just getting very, very creative on how we do it. And again, the state is sending in some of this money. If that money gets shut off, you will see a lot of the small projects that we're doing and stacking up on the projects, you will see that slow down drastically. So stay tuned. Like I said, there's some good news coming on that. Tune in to hopefully about the June board meeting, and hopefully you'll see some good announcements. All right, debt repayment schedule. This is just showing you what we have out there. 2015 bond, we have about $3 million left on it. 2015, about $1,500,000. The 2018 bond is about $5 million. Long story short, we have $49 million in debt. But I'm very proud of this, again, through the help of our legislature, through Ms. Wallace getting really creative on how we're paying off debt. In a year, we've paid off $6,365,555. So, you know, that's a large percentage of debt to have knocked out in the right at 2 years we've been here together. So very proud of that. We're doing everything we possibly can to be fiscally responsible with your money. All right, so while a lot of you are probably here today, I'm very thankful for this opportunity because I can expound upon this and answer questions. I saw some of the responses and some of the interviews that went out, and this is very good that I can explain things a little better. All right, so after the property tax vote was defeated, again, I'm not upset about that. People spoke, they challenged me to find other ways. That's what we're trying to do. I was able to meet with our local representatives and had questions from the commission, from the city of Prattville, from our local delegation. Hey, what do we do now that it's been defeated? And this concept of a hybrid model came up in that. Okay. Long story short, there were some systems in Georgia that basically, if you have a large city that's in your district, but that city overlaps in the county lines of different counties, the theory is you take in the entire city, which increases your revenue, but it all helps the total model. That's why it's called a hybrid. It's a city system, but you're coupling it with a county system, hence the word hybrid. So that's where these studies started first, okay? When Ms. Wallace and I were running numbers, we had a pretty good idea on what it would take to do it, but I'm the Talk County Board of Education, so anything that I present, people are going to view, well, he's doing that because that's the numbers they came up with. Anything that the other representatives put out, people are going to say, well, that's what they see. So we went through Criterion. It's a neutral third party. They just put it out there. Here's what you can, can't do. Again, they've done studies where absolutely should not do anything. They've done studies where you know, hey, you gotta do a lot of rebranding, restructuring. We contracted with them to be a neutral third party. So back to that hybrid model. So part of what they initially studied was they were gathering all the demographics, all the housing developments, all this stuff to look at how that would help in a hybrid system. Well, part of my job as superintendent is always have a backup plan. I'm an old coach. I always try to think worst case scenario. Well, for me, what my fear with a hybrid system was, and this never occurred, it never came up, this is Lyman Woodfin doing my job. Okay, I want to say that clearly. The whole city-county study was initially me trying to make sure that no matter what, I have a plan for the district. So with the hybrid model, our estimates were the city of Prattville, yes, we would gain some money on East Prattville, but at some point the city would have to chip in money to help. Well, again, my viewpoint, nobody else's. I always look at things, if I'm in that seat, what would I do differently, or how would I approach a problem? So I'm like, well, if the money coming in is going to be, say, 5, 6, 7 million, well, how much would it really cost to do a city system? And I didn't want the county or the city, the county system being hit 3, 4 years down the road of, hey, this hybrid's working, but we're going to do our own thing. That's a natural assumption. I'm not saying that's happening. That is why I did the study. There is nothing else. That is it. That is why I asked them to look at that, so that I knew worst case scenario what we're looking at, okay? Now, I also did that because part of the ad valorem defeat, many people in the city of Prattville say, why don't we have a city system? I couldn't answer that. So this study, again, neutral third party, looks at all the finances and goes, here's what it's going to take, here's what the result is. That's what all that is about. Now, I will not shy from this. Yes, I am trying to find solutions for the long-term problems we talked about. But the hybrid model, ultimately, Criterion said, look, it's not going to work because, again, they went through all the legislative acts, things that we all needed to get on the same page about. They got us all together and said, look, hybrid model cannot work because East Prattville, a large percentage of that money that is in Elmore County, yes, it goes to the Elmore County Commission, but then the commission is not legally obligated to give it to a school system. The Elmore County Commission decides to give a large chunk of money to the Elmore County Board of Education. Roughly, if I remember right, it was 4 to 5 million, so somewhere around that area. So why did the hybrid model get defeated? Well, the Elmore County Commission is not going to give the Autauga County Board of Education money. So that stopped that as far as the model, okay? So that's why then Criterion presented the rest of the study. We talked a lot about this in the work session, a public work session. I hate that the other night we didn't get to spend as much time on the hybrid because it would have made more sense on why they spoke so much about the split, because again, everything I just told you was explained even in more detail in other meetings and said, hey, the hybrid's not an option, okay? All right, so let's see here. I think I just went through all this, to be honest with you. They evaluated different options. They did the analysis of a hybrid school system, just went over that. Part of that, again, to also know what it would look like if that ever occurred. They analyzed the City of Prattville County split, and then they're also looking at, okay, if all else fails and you continue to lose enrollment and you continue to have growth in area, what does a restructuring and zone modification plan look like using the current facility? So again, they were looking at all that stuff. All right, yeah, I did. I hit all this. That's pretty much what I was talking about, the hybrid model. I'm just going to move a little forward. With the city-county system, I didn't talk about that, but basically it would be a 60-40 split. The county would maintain about 40% of the students. The city would maintain about 60. Like they said in the model, typically a career tech education program stays with the county. Again, the city system would incur all debt. So that debt I just told you about, a lot of that would stay in the city of Prattville. The annual cost, they put all this out there. Let's see, that's our bond. That's the wrong thing. I'm sorry. Let's see. I apologize. I can't hardly see anymore. All right. So it was estimated that a minimum reserve fund of $7.3 million is what it would take for the city of Prattville to run it. If I remember right, the startup cost was about $17 million. So again, people say, well, why don't we have this or that? What I was hoping to gain out of this was get financial numbers, but also to educate the public on this is the true cost of what all this is going to be. Now, are there different ways of raising revenue? Yes. But as far as what it costs to run that kind of system, the numbers are here. The study's about to be public. I think it's going to go on the website today. Again, this is me trying to be transparent with many of you that have asked, why don't we have a city system? But here it is. This is the true cost of it. I am not advocating for a split. I'm not advocating for any of that. I'm advocating for all of us pulling together to find a way to solve solutions. At the end of the day, I'm the county superintendent. I love all my kids, all our schools, and we're trying to find solutions, okay? All right, so they estimated it would take about 15 months to study all of it, to hire people, and again, the cost, I just went over that, about $17 million. All right, so the flip side of that is the county school system. Obviously, if you're at 40% of what you are now, you would have to reduce personnel. I would obviously drastically cut central office. That's what they were talking about in the study. As far as the county side, the financial impact would be minimal there. Now, we would lean heavily on our partners in the counties to help us maintain the funding that we have. But again, the main cost on a split obviously is a city system, so you would expect the city to have a lot of cost there, okay? All right, this is just talking about the modification plan. Again, the only reason we're even mentioning that is the two problems I've been telling you about. We have facility problems in Prattville. I've got to figure out how to keep our enrollment here. The dual feeder pattern in Prattville was set up that way because Prattville High School, when I graduated, we had 2,000 students. Right now, they're at 1,796, I believe. That's not that much of a drop, but when you get into some of our elementary schools, the numbers, you start to wonder, do you need a dual feeder pattern? Now, we're not there yet. I'm not saying all these changes coming. I'm saying the trend. My job is to look at this system in 3 years, not tomorrow. Okay, I've got to have a 3 to 5 year plan so that you guys are prepared, and again, so that you know we're using your money the correct way. All this is trying to get ahead of trends. I want to stop the trend of our families leaving. I want to stop the trend of not having a plan for growth in Marbury. And I'm going to say this, and I know there's different models and different things. I firmly believe in our public education system, and I'm a product of it, and your communities are going to go as your public school system goes. And I'll just say that. But anyway, a lot of the older facilities obviously take a lot of maintenance, that's cost. And again, that's what Criterion is looking at in that world. That stuff's not ready yet, but again, this is only if we can't solve some other problems. All right, so the path forward. This is why I'm so thankful for this opportunity today, because obviously we spoke a lot more on it right now than what you can say in a 8-second news clip that was part of an 8-minute conversation. The path forward is everybody working together, right? And I gotta say again, I feel good where we're at. All of our partners are understanding that this is not fear mongering. I had a couple board members say that the other night. This is not scaring the public. If you've been in our schools, you know what I'm telling you is the truth. You know that your child is in a building, and our teachers are teaching in buildings that makes learning more difficult than what it does before. If you want to see the impact of things, ask our kindergarten teachers. How nice is it having hot water in your classroom compared to what it was before? We were able to repair the roofs at Prattville Primary. I mean, I walked into a situation where, and I don't mean that bad, it's just the truth. One of the first days I realized we got problems was I walked into a classroom at Prattville Primary and I was talking to teachers like, man, that's great. You got a swimming pool right there, for your kids to have story time. And the teacher looked at me and said, no, sir, that's to catch the rain. And that's my job to make sure that's not the standard. So I'm going to keep pushing for us to work together. I'm going to keep pushing for finding revenue. I said it last night jokingly, and I mean it with everything I got. I will not be asking for an ad valorem increase. We tried. Our people have spoken. You have given me a mandate of, hey, find another way. I'm going to keep finding another way. I just hope that you see, especially like I said, in the next month or so, you're going to see some projects. I hope people understand that is not coming out of local dollars. I keep saying that because it's so important. It's not local dollars that is making some of this happen. It is mainly state dollars that we're maximizing to the fullest extent. And if those dollars keep coming in, you'll see them. But I will not be able to build schools until we can free up the budgetary constraints to be able to take on that bond payment. Again, I gave you some of those numbers a minute ago. All right, so long-term facilities plan. I would like to see, this is just me, I would like to see a new Prattville High School or a K-6 school on the central side. This is long-term. This is pie in the sky. This is, trying to give everybody a vision on where I'm trying to get to. Again, our families in the central zone are very much adamant that I'm leaving for some reasons, but a lot of the reason is, hey, this model is tough with me working. I need to be able to put my kids in one school. So I think we either have to reimagine that overall feeder pattern or develop another K-6 school or build a new high school and kind of work it from there. We have to continue to evaluate our enrollment trends to make those decisions. And then the other major issue is the Marbury Pine Level area. Is that solution a middle school? Is it an addition to the high school? Is it an addition? I don't know that answer. That's why you have to continue to look at enrollment and growth patterns. But my sobering reality is, and this is why I'm saying this, we cannot solve it with the current way things are. I can start to solve it probably in about 3 years. I showed you the bond payment stuff. A lot of those things are getting paid off in 3 years. The question is, can we hold the line for 3 more years? And you know, that's the challenge. We talk about losing teachers. Can we hold the line for 3 years? And that's it at the end of the day on what we're trying to do. Okay. All right. Almost done. Just very quickly, we've moved centralized registration. It's at the old kindergarten. It's on the building farthest to the left. So that's where, if you're a new student, that's where your families will enroll. The address is 338 First Street. Again, all this is online now. We did adjust, let's see. Yep, let me go there real quick. We did adjust some of our required proofs. We went through this year. We really found out really quick that some of this we had to adjust. So now instead of 3 combinations, we have 5. So again, we're trying to meet our parents' needs. But I'm gonna be honest with you, you know, I've got to make sure that people living in Talk County are the ones that are in Talk County. So yes, these combinations are worked in a way to prevent fraud. We added some options, trying to give you more options, but they're this way for a reason. In-district enrollment, you know, we opened that up last year. I want to say 60, 70 kids off the top of my head that went through that process. There's board policies that dictate discipline and attendance and some things. So some kids did not make it through that process. Some of it got denied because of space capabilities. You know, I went over 2 examples specifically. The 10th grade class at Marbury High School is extremely large. There's no room for any more 10th grade students. Daniel Pratt, some of their classes are there. So some of that was denied due to that. But it's there. We try to meet as many as we can. That next portal will open up June 6th. It will close June 13th. Okay. All this is the old hardship program that was not on paper. Okay. That's what in-district transfers is. It's the old hardship program. But when I came in, I wanted something on paper to guide what we're doing. So that's what that is. Out of district, very few kids used that this past year. There was a few. Same discipline, same attendance policies. They do have to pay a fee of $1,500. That's only fair to my Todd County families that live here and pay taxes. That is a fee that we mirror at Elmore County. That's what they use. We try to mirror a lot. Mr. Dennis and I work very closely together on a lot of things. Again, that's to offset some of the costs to educate the child, but it's also to be fair to our Todd County families. That portal opens up June 9th. It closes June 27th. On both the in-district and out-of-district transfers, please make sure you know your AHSAA guidelines. The only way your child is eligible, if you're transferring out of your zone, we're back up. They are ineligible if you are out of your zone transferring to a school for varsity play. They can play JV, they cannot play varsity. Now, once you establish residency a year, you're eligible the next year. But we've had some families that didn't quite understand that, and we've been able to talk through them. But again, please know your AHSAA rules. That's in the application. It is in black and white as you're applying for an in-district transfer or an out-of-district transfer into us. It's in there. All right, returning student registration. This is all online again this year. We will have hard copies available the first week of school if necessary. As a dad of 5 kids, my wife, she likes this process. It's much faster than sitting there filling out the same forms 5 times. So we'll start pushing that out to our schools. May 12th, Marbury Middle, Marbury High, Daniel Pratt. May 13th, Pine Level, Billingsley. And then 14th, 15th, 16th, we start working through Prattville. This will be open. You can do it. We're working. There were a couple kinks that popped up. We thought we had it all squared away. It worked fine on all the test runs, and then we went live and we had a couple of issues at Marbury. So hopefully that's been squared away. All right. Questions and answers. All right, Ms. Thomas. I know I probably spoke a little longer than what I'd like to, but what all do we have?
Yeah, we have just a few questions.
Okay.
So, you ready to fire away?
I hope so. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, so the first one is, why are all schools adopting the same mascot? So I'm assuming they're talking Prattville City.
The Lions, yeah.
What happened to school individuality?
That's a great question. Part of what we're trying to do is to get everybody to pull in the same direction. And, you know, I had a lot of families go, hey, it cost me a lot of money to buy Bobcat gear, turn right around, buy Eagle or Cougars, and I can't even remember all. Cats. So part of that is to try to streamline it for our families. It's also, I really like how our schools put together the one team, one town. In Prattville, because Prattville's so big, and I lived here all my life, you know, sometimes it feels like we're pulling in different directions. I understand the individuality of the schools, but as a Tulsa County schools, we got to pull one way, and then as City of Prattville schools, we have to pull the same way. It does help with purchasing power, okay? So the more you're buying one logo, one type of t-shirt, it does help with that on the district level. But again, it was more getting together with our principals, and you know, the idea honestly came from that group, and you know, trying to get everybody to rally around one cause. So I know there was some hurt feelings, and I understand that. But I will say this, having lived it when I was principal at Marbury, at one time at Marbury, it was I don't remember what the Pine Level was before. Then it turned into the Wolves at the Marbury Middle School, and then we were the Bulldogs. And once all three principals got together, it really changed the tune out there with our families. And again, if the logos are very similar and it's the same colors, guys, you're not having to buy a bunch of stuff every single year. And that was the thought beside it, or behind it, trying to rally everybody behind one.
And we are working on a cartoon style mascot that will be individualized per school. So
yeah, great point. Yes. Yeah, you'll see differences. Like you know, if you're at Prattville Elementary, you know the theme is shine, and you will see. I mean, they've done a great job. I mean, it's all over campus, and you'll see some things like that. I mean, but the thought was, hey, let's get a sense of pride in our kids that, hey, I'm a lion. If I'm in Billingsley, I'm a bear. If I'm in Marbury, I'm a bulldog. You know, a toggle's an eagle. You know, what? Let's get a sense of pride in the city of Prattville, because there's enough things going on. There's enough drive to hurt public education at the state and federal level. This is a simple solution for us to try to get everybody to pull in the same direction.
Okay, all right, this one's a little lengthy, so bear with me. We need clear and concise written rules at the county level for tryouts for sports and any related activities where you have to try out or audition. Then one at the school level. Written rules on paper give parents at the tryouts level or before, like the start of school. Things included are repercussions for not following the rules, such as dress code during tryouts, parent actions, disqualification, etc. A clear outline to appeal a decision of not making the team, or with related activities where a student doesn't get to be a part. A parent meeting. In the appeal process, it should include BOE level person that is over the program, not just school level personnel. Across the county, there should be a grading score system that is followed. Merit should be clearly outlined. Actions before, during, and after, to include disqualifications for things like drama in and outside of the school that could affect the team's reputation. Things that show a student's merit, proven vaping or alcohol use that is done outside the school, proof things such as pictures, staff seeing the action, or not word of mouth done intentionally. This helps the reputation of the team. Making a school sports team shows a form of leadership. The students are a representation of the school and the district. They are examples which will be watched by younger kids coming into the school.
Okay, that's a lot there. I'll try to unpack some of it.
So clear and concise written rules for tryouts for sports.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with some of that. I'll start there. We employ coaches and sponsors to run their programs. They are evaluated on how their programs are ran. The principal does the evaluations of the personnel on their campus. I'm going to evaluate principals based on how their campuses run. I agree. I think there was a parent meeting in there. There was a lot of things there that are best practices that should occur. However, I'm not going to write guidelines for a basketball coach to run his tryouts the way he or she sees fit. I'm not a basketball expert. A lot of days I wonder if I'm an expert on anything, but you know, we're hiring people to run the programs. It has to be their call. Now, the questions about appealing to central office, the only time I will step in on any of that is if the school did not follow their procedures, or if there was an issue with their procedures, that I will step in. That's my role, to make sure our schools are in compliance with their rules, or county policy. So as far as appealing to us, the only time I get involved or recommend that a school do something different, I'm never gonna tell people to put somebody on a team. I'm not gonna do that. But if there's a flaw in how the process worked based on the policies and procedures of the school, that is my job as a check and balance to make sure that our schools are in compliance. So yes, there's been some things there. Now, specific policies, the only sport that has a policy in the Board of Education is cheerleading. We have a policy in terms of what they have to do. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I think that's where the independent judges and all that, I may be wrong on that, but I do know that's the only sport with a board policy. And I'm not really sure why, it's just been that way. I'm not crazy about mandating how coaches and band directors choose, and theater teachers, and I'm not going to dictate to them how they set their team. Now, especially with the salaries and supplements that we're paying now, there's an expectation there that things are done, the right way, and that's a legitimate point. That's why, when it's not, I'll step in on the procedures.
Will pre-K remain in Autauga County after next year?
That's the plan. But I'll say this, that was part of the initiative. If you go back to the tax thing, I was very clear multiple times. I said it numerous times, guys. I am not saying that everything on this side is what's going to occur. I'm not saying everything on here is going to be cut. I said, if we get into a budget spot, just like I just explained, pre-K is one of those things that cost us money, that if I'm having to cut costs, it's on the table. I value pre-K. I'm very glad that we've kept it this year. I don't plan on cutting it next year, but again, I'll say this, if some of the money from the state and everything else cuts off and our local revenue dries up, because the scary part for me is half of our local revenue comes from sales tax. So if our economy goes into a recession, that's drastically going to hurt us, and that's where you start seeing the chain reaction. So I don't have any to answer the question, I don't have plans to cut pre-K at the moment. I'm looking forward to seeing it next year and hopefully move on.
So along the same pre-K questions, when will it move to the new Prattville Kindergarten School?
Yeah, that question, we decided to leave it at Prattville Primary at the moment because, well, honestly, I'll be honest with you, a lot of it is the equipment, the cost of moving a lot of the equipment, playground equipment. And at that time, that was right there when we were looking at pre-K. Do you keep it? Do you not? So I'm going to evaluate it next year. We'll see how it goes. I also need to see about the spacing capability at Prattville Kindergarten. Right now, there's a lot of space, and there's no two ways around that because some of the enrollment numbers. Now it looks better right now, but so to answer the question, next year it'll be in the same locations. We're going to evaluate at the end of next year.
Why is art at Billingsley being canceled?
Why is art at where?
Billingsley.
Well, I'll go back to what I just said. We give principals the pool of units. They decide how to use those units. Now, again, I'm not going to dictate one way or the other on that. That's why I have those principals in those positions. I understand the concern there. I've actually had to live that as a principal. I had to cut art one year. I was able to bring it back the next year. So I understand the concern there. Now, again, I know we're trying to hire a band director at Billingsley. I'm very proud of that. If we can get a band director in, then speaking of Mr. Griffin, I would imagine that person's going to have music across the grades. So that may be some of the thinking. I don't know, but I don't get into what they're cutting or why. They have to be able to make those decisions. So I don't know. Yeah.
There are several questions that are phrased a little differently, but they all center around pink slipping or non-renewing a non-tenured teacher.
Okay.
In some cases, they're saying, a veteran teacher, highly qualified, replacing them with emergency cert or
Right.
coaches.
Right. Okay, so two things there. Again, kind of what I just said on Billingsley, principals at the end of the year have to make decisions to fit the needs of their school the best. Now, again, I am proud of the fact that we added many units back to the schools. At the end of the day, the principals make decisions on their campuses. I understand the concern there, but also I'll say this, you're not on that campus day to day to know what the principal is evaluating or not. And ultimately, each school is like a small business, and the principals are responsible for running that business. If they're making decisions that are going well, then my job is to evaluate and renew. If the decisions are not doing well, then it's my responsibility to evaluate and move from there. It's no different than the board. There's been a lot of decisions I've made that some have worked, some have not. It's the same level there. My Board of Education does not dictate to me how to do things, but I also understand with that freedom also comes a high level of accountability. And if I'm not doing my job, then they're gonna let me go, and that's just business. I'm not saying that on the teacher side. I'm saying the question was about what goes into all that. So when a principal makes the decisions on how to staff their school the next year, generally speaking, I'm going to back that decision because that's why that person's on their campus. I get it. I don't want to lose experienced teachers or good teachers either. I understand that. Now the coaching side, I don't think we're cutting teachers just to hire coaches, but I will say, having lived that once before, I had to cut my art program one time, and I'm not saying that about Billings. I'm saying Lyman Woodfin as a principal, so I want to make sure I'm saying that. I had to make some decisions one time because we did not have I believe it was softball or baseball. One of the sports, we didn't have a coach, and I didn't have a way of hiring anybody. So yes, that played in my decision. I'm not saying it don't occur. Sometimes with the limitation of units, you have to make those tough decisions. Now, I think we made better progress at eliminating those kind of decisions this year, and I feel like another good year or two we'll have the ability to supplement a lot of units where we're not in that situation.
A few questions related to what steps are being taken to ensure that all students, regardless of what racial background, feel safe, valued, and respected within our schools. How can the community support these efforts, specifically regarding fairness and respect? What steps will you take to ensure all students are treated with dignity and respect by all school staff members?
Okay, so basically fairness.
Mm-hmm. Safety, valued, respected.
Yeah, I'm very, transparent. I'm taking questions here, didn't know the question before. I pride myself on telling our staff that we have 3 rules. I will never back away from it. The first rule is we're going to try to treat people right. We're going to treat them right. Second one, we're going to serve others. And third one, we're going to do our job. And I make my evaluations on my decisions on those 3 rules. Now, specifically, if you have a concern at the school, I would definitely start at the school level. I would go to the assistant principal. If you don't feel like you're getting the response or not response or the feedback that you need there, the next step would be at Ms. McKnight or Dr. Marsh, and then to me. Now, I think many of you have known, I'll talk to you, I'll meet with you, take a lot of pride in that. You deserve the opportunity to meet with us when you feel the need. But I would encourage them to contact their local schools and what can be done to help us. Guys, I'll be honest with you, social media is a problem. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I've dealt with some things that spiraled from social media between, family members arguing online and it brings in the kids and then it blows up at school. And I'm not a big fan of the cell phone thing, but I think that might be one great thing is if we're not on social media, in the school day, I think that'll help some of the issues. And I'll say this too, we're looking at some things with our policy on bullying and harassment. Right now, those are lumped together. and the way you define bullying is repeated. There's the hard part for families to understand is when a school does an investigation. Let's say something happens here and there's 8 students around. If the statements and the investigation is inconclusive because 3 say this happened and 3 said this happened, guys, our code of conduct is the same way as the court of law. You have to enforce what you can prove. And a lot of times families think, well, the school did nothing. Well, the school may not have been able to do anything because the evidence didn't show it. Now, if you feel like things are not being investigated, that's where I come in, because if it comes to me, I do follow up with the schools. Hey, what did you find out on this? So I would encourage them if they feel like they're not safe or if they feel like they're being bullied. I do encourage them to fill out a bullying form. The schools, when they receive a bullying form, they do have to investigate it. They document on the form and send it back to us. And that. But again, bullying is such a hot topic nowadays. If I'm staring at you, that's not bullying. If I'm in our current way of defining all that, it's repeated actions. And we may look at splitting harassment and bullying. That's something that I'll give Coach Palmer at Marbury. He mentioned that to me yesterday in a meeting we had. There's some things there that we can do differently on policy that we're going to look at. But again, just follow up with your local school, follow up with bullying forums, and if need be, work through the chain of command, and we'll follow up as well.
And remind too, we can't share other student punishments.
Yes, no, that's, thank you.
Sometimes families aren't aware.
I'll tell you one thing I've been very excited about, when I was a principal and we couldn't show, video and things like that. That's one thing the legislature changed with the student due process. That's really helped. I think it's helped showing families, look, this is what occurred. Before it was, hey, trust me, this occurred, and that's hard. I get it. So yeah, I forgot what you said there, but yeah,
can't share other student punishment.
And that's frustrating for families too. I can't tell you what the outcome is. It violates federal guidelines. I say to parents all the time, it's one of the hard things about education. That's why it's hard to staff people in education. You want your teacher to handle everything, and he or she does, and the school handles it, and then the parent wants to know what happened, and you can't tell them what happened, and the parent thinks nothing happened. But everything that happens has to follow in line with the board policy. So real quick, I'll say this. Most Class A offenses, there's a progression there. And if the school feels like that infraction's Class A, that's what it's gonna be. Class B, you'll see the outcomes. Generally speaking, Class B infractions are gonna result in ISS or something to that effect. Class C is usually alternative school, possibly long-term. Class D is you're coming for us. Class E, you're gone. Now I say us, I'm talking about the expulsion and review committee, but that's some of the blowback sometimes is families may not see the level of discipline, but they don't know that the school did handle it, but they have to handle it in what they can prove, and sometimes that process will put an infraction. The parent may think it's a C, but the school is like, look, that's not conclusive. I know they did this, I can't prove they did this, so we're gonna punish what we see. So, and I've lived that as a principal, it's tough.
This question is just school closing, so I'm only assuming they're asking, are we closing any schools?
Yeah, no, and I do mean this with all sincerity. I mean, unfortunately, the only one right now, I hate that occurred with a Ottawa, and really look forward to graduation in a couple of days, and but right now, that's the school that is closed so far. But as far as there's no plans next year for that.
Would it be possible to set up an anonymous whistleblower line? Things need to be reported without fear of retaliation and bias, reaction, or inaction.
That's a great question. I know we have the hotline.
Bullying.
Is that what it's for, bullying?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I've never thought about it. I'm not sure. I'll have to get with legal on that one. I don't know. That's a great question.
I'll make a note of that.
I don't get stumped much. That's a really good question. And the only reason I'm thinking like that is, what are the legalities of it? I don't know. That's a great question.
What's the timeline for a new Marbury Middle School?
That's a great question too. Right now, all right, so I said Prattville High School earlier. Prattville High School is gonna be about 150 million. A new Marbury High School would be 80 to 100 million. A new Marbury Middle, or I would say a K-6 school on Central Zone, you're probably looking at 50, 60 million. The reality is right now with those bonds, we don't have the borrowing capability. Now, if I can come up with funding agreements with, I'm just gonna shoot it. You said it was Marbury Middle, right?
Marbury Middle.
So if there's a funding agreement, somehow or another, let's say the county commission and the town of Pine level, that's something you can start working towards, because that is another option. Mr. Glover said it best the other night at the board meeting, like the Board of Education does not have any ability to levy additional taxes or anything. Again, I'm saying this loud and clear. I tried. I mean, people spoke. I'm done with the ad valorem stuff. But we don't have the ability to generate extra dollars. Our dollars comes from sales tax, property tax. That's it. And donations and all, but that's our main two. So as far as building a new school, to answer that, we're kind of stuck right now until we can get to 28, 29, and some of these other bonds come off, or if there is a funding agreement that is worked out between entities and the Board of Education, we can do a little money. That's what I said a minute ago. When we pay everything out, there's 2 to 3 million at the end of the year. So in theory, there's a little money that I could allocate. Now, I would be very hesitant to say we're going to give 3 million, because then that gets you right back to zero. And what happens if something happens? But there would be a little flexibility. But so to answer the question, if it's Marbury Middle and it's 50 million, let's say that's a 30-year note, you're probably looking at a $5 million payment. So I would have to come up with $5 million. If I could put $1 million up and the other entities could put $4 million up, well, you may see that announced. The same rationale is on the city side as well. And that's what we're trying to do is put our heads together with our city council, our mayors, our town council, mayor, our county commission, and just go, is there something else out there that we haven't thought about? That's where I'm at with it. Is let's all get to the table and just figure out, is there some other way that we don't know about to try to solve these? If we can't come to a solution, you will not see any construction until those other bonds are paid off. Then it's possible. Now, I will say this, it's not possible to build both of them because there's not enough money there. If that's the case, that's where trends will start playing in. What do we do?
All right, you're almost done. How will the new cell phone ban be implemented in our schools? If a student is caught with a phone, how will teachers be allowed to enforce the new ban?
Yep.
Stricter enforcement is needed compared to what is currently being done.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Right now, cell phones generally are a Class A infraction, so teachers work through a progression. If a student just refuses to put it up, well, that usually becomes defiance, and that's going to be, generally a Class B infraction. But a lot of our decision on that is going to be determined by what the guidance is that comes from AASB and SSA as far as the interpretation of the law. Again, I have not read it yet from Governor Ivey. I will. I've got to get through graduations, but I will read it and we'll make a decision. I don't disagree with the comment there. It's going to be a shift in culture. If it's left to the local school, where I draw the line is they should not be on them in the classroom. Again, as a principal, I didn't really mind it in the lunchroom or the hallway. To me, the non-negotiables in the classroom. But again, if the law says it can't be out anywhere, then we have to follow the law. So that's what we'll wait to hear, and then we'll determine what the punishment's going to be. And we'll go over all that with families. We know it's going to be a transition. There's no doubt about that. And it's caused some other issues for us too. I mean, some of our classrooms, it's just easier sometimes to pull out the cell phone if they're doing like a Kahoot in class. I've got to look at the device capability in all the classrooms. I mean, it's a major. Sometimes legislation sounds great, and I'm not saying this is not, but there's also the real world reality of what you're doing every day. And for us, we're having to do inventories in the classrooms to see how many classroom sets of Chromebooks and everything else that we have, because if a teacher needs them to, again, I like the Kahoot stuff, I see that a lot in classrooms. If they need them to instantly do that, what does that look like if they can't have their phone and they don't have the devices? That's going to lead to problems for us that we got to solve. So.
With special education being a part of the teacher shortage, has there been any talks to include them into teams on a state level or district stipend?
Yeah, no, the team stuff, that is a great question. Like, I'll be honest with you, I got several questions that, I want to say it was Pine level if I remember right, but from our elementary teachers who are like, hey, our elementary scores are knocking it out of the park, but teams contracts are only for secondary. Why is that? The answer is that's at the state. It has nothing to do with us. I wish we could do teams contracts for anybody. For our viewers, what that means is a teams teacher in the high school setting is a math or science teacher that does some additional trainings, but they get paid substantially more. That is not us. We are carrying out a state program. So I'm not aware of anything at the moment. I know there was talk last year about maybe special education, but again, that's the state level. I really wish we could do that across the board for all of our teachers. Again, I am proud of some of the supplements that we've added. We still got a lot more that we need to look at with our teachers, and we're going to keep trying to do it on our end. But it would be nice if there were some teams opportunities for our elementary, special education, social studies, all our other. I wish that would grow, but that's not the talk, but that's state.
Correct. 2 kindergarten questions. So one is, what is the old kindergarten going to be used for? I think you covered that. And then a separate one, why use the old PKS for second chance versus the newer school facilities?
Okay, no, that's good questions. All right, so the first one, I said that in the thing, the old kindergarten, we're going to use a large portion of it for second chance and AVA. The second question there, what was it? Why not the new kindergarten?
Why use the old PKS for second chance versus the newer school facilities? Okay. I'm assuming in school second chance.
Yeah.
Like every school would have their
own.
All
right, so if it was every school having their own, I can tell you, like right now, several schools do not have that capability. Daniel Pratt is maxed out. Marbury High is maxed out. Pine Level is maxed out. Now, would you have capability at some of the other schools? Yes. Well, then the problem is if I'm doing it for some schools but not for others, well, I'll use Billingsley, for example. If Second Chance was housed everywhere else on their campuses but Billingsley couldn't, well, that's a legal issue and that's a disparity issue for the families that would hit differently for different families. As far as not using, like, say, the new kindergarten, there's some empty classrooms there. I don't think it's enough to do what we're going to do. We're going to expand our second chance operation where instead of just one area for short term, you're probably looking at 4 to 5 classrooms. We're going to expand it so that we can hold a tight line with discipline. Now, again, I went over some of the changes we're going to do that I think will make it better. But the old kindergarten obviously is empty, so space is not an issue there. We're also moving AVA, our virtual school, over there because when our virtual students test, they have to come onto a campus, so they'll be using 2 different portions of that building. And I'll say this too, we still own the kindergarten, so as you know, one of the worst things you can do is leave a building vacant. So that's some of the rationale too, is hey, we have these needs, let's use it.
A secondary question to the second chance at the old PKS is, do we have to provide bus service for those students?
Yes. No, I'm sorry.
Nope.
I'm sorry, I said that backwards.
Yes.
What was the question? Do we have to provide? All right.
Bus service to second chance students.
All right, so you get into some legal things there. If it's a related service for a special education student, then we do. And that's been some of the blow up from parents. Hey, that's federal law, so that's why sometimes you see buses.
Last question. I'm interested in my child attending the virtual school or AVA, but I'm concerned about the lack of a physical teacher, especially for harder subjects. How does this work, or how will it work for Etobicoke County?
Well, I got great news for you. This past year, they did a great job. There's only like 3 people over there. Ms. Jerkins did a great job. This year, because we were able to grow the program, we were able to get state funding for it. Now I have teacher units. This year, you will see our teachers. We've hired a staff. Right now, I think there's 1 elementary we're looking at. We might have to add a second one. I believe we've added 5 or 6 secondary teachers. I don't remember off the top of my head. We're building that staff based on the number of kids. So the way it's going to work next year, of course, everything's online. Teachers will have Zoom times that they will be available for students. They will ask their kids, hey, come in, Zoom in, check in with me. But if that student starts to struggle, and I want to say Ms. Jerkins said a C or below, I don't remember it exactly, maybe it's a D. I don't remember what her language is going to be, but basically, if they're struggling online, now we're going to force you to come in and sit down with our teacher. We're going to get you back on track. We were not able to do that last year because of the way it was ran. We contracted out through Edgenuity. But I'm very excited about that. I think, our virtual program has grown, and I think as we do things like that, I think you're going to really see it take off. And it's an option for our family. So your child, if you decide to do that, we'll have teachers, and they will be reaching out. So
That's all.
that's it.
That's it.
Well, guys, I appreciate you guys logging in. As always, contact me if you have any questions. I appreciate the support. Appreciate the questions. There was some really good questions there. There's a couple there I need to go back and think about some more on. So I appreciate all that you guys do. Thank you for supporting the Talk County Schools, and thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.